Overflows.
What is relationship, hurts, traumas, and life beyond? Insights into life, love, and light by Nivedita Rimba. We are born open and trusting, but over time, through the painful and traumatic experience we are subjected to while growing up, we learn to develop a carefully constructed protective layer in order to survive. Part of this mechanism is to develop defenses to shield us from being hurt again. These defenses are unconscious and cause us to close our hearts, to mistrust intimacy, and to attack or withdraw when we feel the slightest threat to our sense of security. While these serve to protect us, they make relationship difficult. Not only do we have a protective shell, the partner as well. The problem that surfaces in relationship stems mostly from our hurts and traumas that we carry over from childhood. These lie dormant until we find a partner whom we love and trust in the first place. We then become vulnerable, and our partner can either help us to heal or can hurt us. In most of the cases, instead of healing, the relationship creates more hurts. We have to change that trauma, otherwise humanity is going to remain the same, always afraid of the unknown, fearful, not courageous, not looking for adventure, not looking for and discovering new spaces. Sometimes the problem had to do with culture, geography, and lifestyle. Either we live in different places, come from different cultures or religions, have different needs or desires in life, or at different places in our developmental cycle. So even though love is present, it is often not enough to form an enduring partnership. Certain relationships start with a lot of hopes, but often end in a painful way that forces us to confront our fantasies, romantic dreams, or illusions. Without realizing it, we were projecting our unfulfilled needs and unrealistic expectations onto the other, not really seeing who the other is and who we are. Confronting our relationship issues often means looking honestly at our projections. A most common problem is the lack of a healthy differentiation when each individual seems to have two compatible sets of needs. For instance, for love and aloneness, or we can say for merging and for freedom. But there is also a deeper and more creative perspective from which to examine problems in relationships. Relationship problems are in fact the creative problems of life. They are part of a natural, emotional, and spiritual maturation that gives us the opportunity to deeply to look deeply into ourselves. To look deeply into ourselves, we are born open and trusting, but over times, through painful and traumatic experiences, we are subjected to while growing up. We learn to develop a carefully constructed protective layer in order to survive. Part of this mechanism is to develop defenses to shield us from being hurt again. And that normally happens on a day-to-day basis. We feel hurt for one thing or the other. These defenses are unconscious and cause us to close our hearts, to mistrust intimacy, and to attack or withdraw when we feel the slightest threat to our sense of security. While these served to protect us, they make relationship difficult to manage and continue. Not only do we have a protective shell, the partners as well. This continues in life. These early survival strategies, which worked when we were children, do not work for adults. The reaction causes huge suffering and endless cycles of conflict and chaos. In the end, we feel disappointed, frustrated, and usually retreat within the walls of our well-honed protective defenses. Mistrust and distance sets in, and our relationship becomes compromised. This we see in most of the so-called relationships that we see around us. We often do not have a deep enough access to our inner world in order to identify or even less contain our hurts. So to protect ourselves, we attack, blame, cut off from the other, and try to change and control them. As we have only limited skills to relate, when our partners do or do not do things, unable to contain the hurts that comes up, we react instead, and we usually react with force of all the repressed emotions. When a person reacts, all that emotions that are repressed deep within, they surface. And at that moment we say things which are usually not called for at that moment. And we usually react with the force of all repressed emotions that have been long buried behind our defensive shell. At such times, we say even things that do not relate to situation at that moment. Human bodies are always in the present moment. They do not wander off into the past or the future like minds do. We deepen our capacity to sense. To deepen our capacity to sense is to open up multiple pathways into the here and now. to deepen our capacity to sense is to open up multiple pathways into here and now. Somatic awareness, whether it be through breath movement or any of the senses, is a fast track to witness meditation. Our bodies are an undiscovered country through which we can access our capacity for both our Zorba self, that part of ourselves that gives us access to celebration, or our Buddha self, full of grace, silence, and presence. There is an author who wrote a play called Zorba the Greek. His name was Kazanzaki. A person goes and enjoys and all these things. This is a normal life of everyone. Everyone has two aspects: the Zorba, the one that enjoys, entertains, involves in different kind of entertainments, and the other is Buddha self. A balance between the two has to be made, and this we have to understand as we grow into relationship, that there is a part within us that wants to enjoy, to entertain, which is Zorba, and the other which is Buddha. So when these two are merged into one another, then a balanced being is born. Our bodies are an undiscovered country through which we can access our capacity for both our Zorba self, that part of ourselves that gives us access to celebration, and our Buddha self, full of grace, silence, and presence. Your body is your friend, yet historically, in every culture, we are taught to reject it. Body is your best friend, but we are taught in every culture to reject it, be ashamed of it, to judge it as the source of our downfall, rather than the very ground of healing, meditation, transformation, and awareness. To turn this around is a radical change. Traumatic experiences can throw us into fight, flight, freeze, or fainting responses. If trauma is repeated, we can be locked into these states, as of which give us distorted perception of our bodies, our self-image, and our perception of the world around us. They can also have a profound effect on our physical health, emotional health, our capacity to relate, and our capacity to be present in here and now. In an atmosphere of meditation, love and respect, we use the techniques of somatic experiencing to provide an emotionally safe space from which energy of traumatic events can be safely and carefully re-experienced and realized from the body-mind realm. Enough for now.